The summer heat pressed against the windows of Victoria Design Group's 7th-floor office in downtown Portland, as Emma Victoria studied the financial reports spread across her father's mahogany desk. Red numbers screamed from every column, telling a story of decline that made her stomach twist with anxiety. Outside, the city bustled with life and opportunity. But inside this room, the air felt suffocating with desperation. Robert Victoria sat hunched in his leather chair, looking decades older than his 58 years. His hands trembled slightly as he removed his reading glasses. And Emma noticed the deep lines etched around his eyes that hadn't been there 6 months ago. The architectural firm that her grandfather had founded 40 years ago. The company that had shaped Portland's skyline with innovative green buildings was drowning in debt. There has to be another way, Emma said, her voice barely steady. She had spent the last 3 weeks exploring every possible solution, calling every bank, every potential investor, every contact in their professional network. All doors had closed. The corruption scandal that had swept through the construction industry had caught Victoria Design Group in its wake. Guilty only by association, but damaged nonetheless. Robert lifted his gaze to meet his daughter's eyes. Emma saw the weight of failure crushing him, the burden of knowing that 50 families depended on his decisions. I've exhausted every option, Emma. The banks won't extend our credit. Investors are terrified of the negative publicity. We have 3 weeks before we default on our loans, and then everything your grandfather built will be gone. Emma walked to the window, pressing her palm against the cool glass. At 28, she had just begun to make her mark as an environmental architect, designing buildings that harmonized with nature rather than dominated it. She had dreams of transforming how cities approach sustainable development, of proving that ecological responsibility and economic viability could coexist. Now those dreams felt as distant as the snow-capped mountains visible on the horizon. What about the proposal you mentioned last week? Emma asked, though part of her already knew the answer. There had been something in her father's voice during that phone call, hesitation that spoke volumes. Robert stood and joined her at the window. Dominic Ashford has made an offer. He'll inject enough capital to clear all our debts, secure our current projects, and guarantee jobs for every employee. He'll also fund your master's program at the Copenhagen School of Design that you've been accepted to. Emma's breath caught. Dominic Ashford. The name carried weight in every conversation about real estate development on the West Coast. At 34, he had built an empire from nothing, transforming abandoned industrial sites into thriving mixed-use developments. His reputation was legendary in business circles, known for his brilliant strategic mind and ruthless negotiation tactics. He was also notoriously private about his personal life, rarely appearing at social events despite his wealth. What does he want in return? Emma asked, though her intuition had already provided the answer. A marriage, Robert said quietly. He says he needs a wife who understands architecture and sustainable development, someone who can represent his company at industry events and collaborate on design philosophy. He's proposing a partnership that benefits both families professionally. The words hung in the air between them like a sentence awaiting execution. Emma closed her eyes, feeling the impossibility of the situation pressing down on her shoulders. This was the 21st century. Arranged marriages belonged to historical dramas and distant cultures, not to modern American architects with graduate degrees and independent careers. This is insane, Emma whispered. People don't do this anymore. I know. Robert's voice cracked with emotion. Believe me, I know. But if we refuse, I lose everything. Your mother and I will lose our home. Your college fund that we borrowed against will be gone. More importantly, 50 families will be unemployed right before the holidays. Margaret Chen has 3 kids in college. David Rodriguez is supporting his elderly parents. Sarah Williams just had twins. Emma thought of those faces, people she had known since childhood. Margaret, who always remembered her birthday with homemade cookies. David, who had taught her to read architectural blueprints when she was 12. Sarah, who had cried happy tears at her college graduation. How could she be selfish when so many lives hung in the balance? Have you met him? Emma asked. Dominic Ashford. Yesterday. He's intense, very direct, very confident. But he was also respectful. He made it clear that he doesn't expect romantic love, just mutual respect and a professional partnership that works both personally and in business. Emma turned from the window to face her father fully. What kind of man proposes a business marriage in this day and age? What's wrong with him that he can't find a wife normally? Robert managed a weak smile. I wondered the same thing. From what I gathered, he's completely focused on his work. He tried a conventional engagement 5 years ago, but his fiancée couldn't handle the demands of his career. Since then, he's avoided serious relationships entirely. He views this as a practical solution to a practical need. The logic was cold, calculated, utterly devoid of romance or spontaneity. Yet Emma found herself considering it with the same analytical mind she applied to architectural problems. What were the variables? What were the constraints? What solutions served the greatest good while preserving the most important values? How long do I have to decide? She asked. He wants an answer by tomorrow evening? If you agree, the wedding would happen in 2 weeks. He said, the faster the arrangement is formalized, the sooner he can begin transferring capital and saving our active projects. Emma nodded slowly, feeling as if she were observing her life from outside her body, watching a character in a story she hadn't written. I need time to think. I need to walk. That evening, Emma found herself wandering through the Pearl District, where historic warehouses had been converted into galleries, cafes, and loft apartments. This neighborhood represented everything she loved about thoughtful, urban development. The preservation of character, while adapting to modern needs. She stopped at a small coffee shop where she often came to sketch design ideas. Ordering her usual oat milk latte and finding a corner table, her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Jennifer. Your mom called me. Are you okay? This is crazy, Emma. You can't seriously be considering this. Emma stared at the message, then at the sketches in her notebook. Pages filled with designs for carbon-neutral office buildings, residential complexes with integrated green spaces, community centers powered by renewable energy. All her dreams, all her ambitions, suddenly contingent on a decision that had nothing to do. With architecture and everything to do with sacrifice, she thought about her mother Claire, who had met Robert in college and married him for love. They had built their relationship on friendship first, romance following naturally over time. Her parents had shown her what partnership looked like, how two people could support each other's dreams while creating something greater together. Could that kind of partnership exist in a marriage that began as a transaction? Or was she about to make the biggest mistake of her life? Emma opened her laptop and searched for information about Dominic Ashford. Articles showed a man with sharp features, dark hair, and intense eyes that seemed to analyze everything they observed. Photos captured him at construction sites wearing a hard hat, at city council meetings presenting development proposals, at ribbon-cutting ceremonies for his completed projects. Never at galas or charity events. Never with a date. Always alone, always focused, always working. One interview from a business magazine caught her attention. When asked about work-life balance, Dominic had responded, "Balance is a luxury for people without vision. I'm not building a comfortable life. I'm building a legacy." The words revealed someone driven by purpose rather than pleasure. Someone who prioritized achievement over personal happiness. Emma recognized that mindset because she shared it. Her own relationships had failed precisely because she put her career ambitions first. Because she couldn't be the carefree girlfriend who prioritized date nights over project deadlines, maybe. Emma thought, two workaholics who understood each other's drive could build something functional, even if it wasn't conventional romance. As the coffee shop prepared to close, Emma made her decision. She called her father. "Dad," she said, when he answered. "Tell Dominic Ashford I accept." The silence on the other end lasted several heartbeats. Then Robert's voice, thick with emotion. "Emma, are you absolutely certain? I don't want you to sacrifice your happiness for the company." "I'm not sacrificing anything," Emma said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. "I'm choosing to help people who need it, and maybe, just maybe, I'll find a partner who actually understands what drives me. At worst, I'll have financial security and resources to pursue my architectural vision. At best, well, I guess we'll find out." 3 days later, Emma stood in front of the floor-length mirror in her bedroom, smoothing down the navy blue dress she had chosen for her first formal meeting with Dominic Ashford. The dress was professional, but elegant, and paired with minimal jewelry in her auburn hair pulled back in a low bun, she felt like herself, confident and competent. Her mother appeared in the doorway carrying a small velvet box. "Your grandmother's pearl earrings," Claire said softly. "She wore them when she married your grandfather." It wasn't an arranged marriage, but it was practical. They grew to love each other deeply over 40 years. Emma accepted the earrings, fastening them carefully. "Mom, I know this seems crazy." Claire smiled, though tears glistened in her eyes. "Life rarely follows the script we write for it. What matters is that you're going into this with open eyes and an open heart. Give this man a chance, Emma. Give yourself a chance to be surprised." The restaurant Dominic had chosen was an upscale Italian place in the West Hills, known for its intimate atmosphere and excellent wine selection. Emma arrived exactly on time, her punctuality a point of professional pride. The host guided her to a private corner table where a man stood waiting. Dominic Ashford was taller than she expected. Easily over 6 feet, with a lean, athletic build evident even through his perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His dark hair was slightly longer than current business fashion, and his eyes, a striking gray blue, assessed her with an intensity that made her feel both visible and vulnerable. "Emma Victoria," he said, extending his hand. His voice was deep, with a slight roughness that suggested he spent more time giving orders than making small talk. "Mr. Ashford," she replied, accepting the handshake. His grip was firm, warm, and lasted just a moment longer than strictly professional. "Dominic, please, given that we're getting married, formality seems unnecessary." A hint of humor touched his eyes as he helped her into her chair. As they settled across from each other, Emma studied his face more carefully.
Ow.
The photographs hadn't captured the intelligence in his expression. It's the way his attention seemed completely focused on her. Or the small scar above his left eyebrow that suggested a past more complicated than business magazines reported. "Have you been here before?" Dominic asked, his tone conversational, but his posture suggesting he was gathering data about her. "No," Emma admitted. "My budget typically runs more toward food trucks and neighborhood bistros." Something shifted. In Dominic's expression, a slight relaxation of his features. "I appreciate the honesty. Most people in your position would pretend to be familiar with places like this." "I don't see the point in building our arrangement on false pretenses," Emma said, meeting his gaze directly. "If we're going to do this, I'd prefer complete transparency." "Agreed." Dominic leaned back slightly, and Emma noticed his shoulders lose some of their rigid tension. "Your father told me about your education and your work at Victoria Design Group, but I want to hear it from you. What do you want from life, Emma?" The question surprised her. She had expected to discuss contract terms, expectations, practical arrangements. She hadn't anticipated that he would care about her personal aspirations. "I want to change how we build," Emma said, her voice gaining confidence as she spoke about her passion. "I want to design structures that regenerate rather than deplete, that give back to the environment instead of taking from it. I believe we can create beautiful, functional spaces that actually improve the ecological health of their surroundings." Dominic nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving her face. "It's ambitious and idealistic." Those aren't insults, by the way. The construction industry needs more visionaries willing to challenge conventional practices. "Have you considered that marrying me might accelerate those goals rather than compromise them?" "How so?" "My company is expanding into sustainable development. We need architects who understand both ecological principles and economic realities. Your education, combined with access to the resources I can provide, could be powerful." Emma studied him carefully, trying to determine if he was being genuine or simply telling her what she wanted to hear. "And what do you get from this marriage besides solving my family's financial problems?" Dominic took a sip of water before responding. "Stability. A wife who understands the demands of my work and can represent the company professionally. Someone who shares my understanding of the development world. Eventually children, a family to continue what I've built." The mention of children sent an unexpected warmth through Emma's body. She hadn't thought that far ahead, hadn't considered the full implications of what she was agreeing to. "How many children?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "2 or 3, ideally. But that's something we can discuss later, when we're both comfortable in the relationship." Their food arrived, providing a natural pause in the intense conversation. As Emma tasted her pasta, she marveled at the surreal nature of the situation. Here she was, discussing future children with a man she had met 15 minutes ago, planning a life with someone who was essentially a stranger. "I have a question," Emma said after a few moments. "Have you been married before? Is there anyone else in your life romantically?" Dominic set down his fork, his expression becoming more serious. I was engaged 5 years ago. She decided she couldn't handle my work schedule and the constant travel. Since then, I've had casual relationships, but nothing serious. There's no one else, Emma. When I make a commitment, it's exclusive and total, and you expect the same from me? Absolutely. His eyes hardened slightly. Mutual fidelity is non-negotiable. We can build respect, affection, maybe even genuine love over time. But loyalty must exist from day one. Okay. Emma felt a strange mixture of relief and apprehension at his directness. There was something reassuring about his clarity, even if the emotions he described seemed more like business objectives than the foundation for a marriage. When dinner concluded, Dominic produced an envelope from his jacket pocket. The prenuptial agreement. My lawyers prepared it, but I want you to review it with your own legal counsel before signing. It's generous, Emma. If our marriage doesn't work for any reason, you'll be financially protected. Emma accepted the envelope, the weight of it feeling like the gravity of her decision made tangible. Dominic, do you actually believe this can work? A marriage that starts like this? He leaned forward, taking her hand for the first time since their initial greeting. His touch was warm, solid, unexpectedly reassuring. I believe two intelligent, determined people can make almost anything work if they commit fully, he said. Emma, something tells me you're exactly as determined as I am. As he spoke, Emma found herself noticing details she had missed initially. The small smile lines around his eyes, suggesting he laughed more than his serious reputation indicated. The calluses on his hands revealing he still worked construction sites personally rather than just managing from offices. The way he looked at her, not just assessing but genuinely interested. When would the ceremony be? Emma asked. Saturday, 2 weeks from now. Small ceremony, immediate families only. Afterward, a brief honeymoon at my house in Cannon Beach. We need to make this appear natural to media and business partners. Real honeymoon? The question escaped before Emma could stop it. Dominic smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his entire face, making him appear younger and less intimidating. As real as we want it to be, Emma, that will be up to both of us. As Dominic drove Emma home that evening, neither spoke. Much. But the silence felt charged with possibility rather than awkwardness. When he stopped in front of her apartment building, he walked her to the door with old-fashioned courtesy. Emma, he said, his voice softer than it had been all evening. I know this isn't conventional, but I promise to respect you, to honor our agreement, and to give this marriage every chance to become something real. Emma looked up at him, seeing vulnerability beneath his confident exterior. That's all I can ask for, she whispered. As she watched him drive away, Emma felt her heart racing with anticipation rather than dread. Maybe she thought this impossible arrangement might become the greatest adventure of her life. The days leading to the wedding passed in a blur of activity that Emma had never imagined experiencing. Dominic had insisted she have complete freedom in choosing her wedding dress. But standing in the elegant bridal boutique in downtown Portland, surrounded by gowns that cost more than her monthly rent, Emma felt overwhelmed by the extravagance. This one is beautiful, the consultant said, adjusting a fitted mermaid-style dress with intricate lace detailing. The price tag made Emma's stomach clench. Claire stood nearby, her eyes bright with unshed tears. You look stunning, sweetheart. Emma turned to examine her reflection in the three-way mirror. The dress was indeed beautiful, but she felt like an actress playing a role in someone else's story. This wasn't how she had imagined her wedding when she was a little girl dreaming about her future. Mom, we don't have to pretend this is normal, Emma said softly. Meeting her mother's gaze in the mirror, Claire approached and placed her hands gently on Emma's shoulders. Every marriage is unique, honey. Your father and I married young and broke, living on love and optimism. You're starting with resources and a clear-headed partnership. But neither approach is wrong. What matters is what you build together. Do you think I can fall in love with him? Emma asked, voicing the question that had kept her awake for the past 3 nights. I think anyone can fall in love with someone who respects them, protects them, and shares their dreams. From what you've told me, Dominic seems to be that kind of person. That afternoon, Emma received an unexpected call from Dominic. His voice sounded different over the phone, less formal and somehow more intimate. Emma, are you free this evening? I'd like to take you somewhere. Not a fancy restaurant this time. Somewhere more personal. 2 hours later, Emma found herself in the passenger seat of Dominic's Range Rover. Driving through the industrial southeast district as the sun began its descent toward the Pacific, they stopped in front of a modest restaurant with worn brick exterior and a simple sign reading Margaret's Kitchen. "Here?" Emma asked, unable to hide her surprise. Dominic smiled, and Emma noticed how that expression softened his entire appearance. "Margaret Foster practically raised me when I was a kid. This is where I learned that the best food doesn't come from the most expensive places." Inside, the restaurant was warm and inviting. With mismatched wooden tables and walls covered in black and white photographs of Portland's history, an elderly woman with silver hair and kind eyes emerged from the kitchen, her face lighting up when she saw Dominic. "Dominic Ashford, it's been too long," Margaret said, embracing him warmly before turning her attention to Emma, "is this lovely young woman." "Margaret, this is Emma Victoria, my fiancée." Margaret's eyes widened with delight as she studied Emma carefully. "Well, she's certainly prettier and looks smarter than that last girl you brought here. That one was all flash and no substance. This one has fire in her eyes." Emma felt herself blushing as Dominic looked equally embarrassed. "Margaret, please?" "What?" "I'm just being honest. Come, sit. I'll bring you my special chicken pot pie." As they settled at a corner table, Dominic began sharing stories Emma had never heard. She learned that he had grown up in a working-class neighborhood in Seattle, that his father had been a construction foreman and his mother a schoolteacher, that he had arrived in Portland at 20 with a scholarship and dreams that exceeded his bank account. "How did you build your company?" Emma asked, genuinely curious. The business magazines never told the real story. Dominic took a sip of iced tea before responding. "Hard work, some luck, and calculated risks. My first project was renovating an abandoned warehouse into loft apartments in the Pearl District. I convinced a group of small investors to take a chance on me. I worked 18-hour days for 2 years, doing everything from drafting plans to installing drywall myself. When that project succeeded, I bought a larger property, and it grew from there. Were you ever afraid?" "Every single day," he admitted. "But I learned that fear can be a powerful motivator if you don't let it paralyze you." Emma studied him in the soft restaurant lighting, seeing past the intimidating businessman to the determined young man who had built something from nothing. She could imagine the 20-year-old Dominic, hungry for success and willing to sacrifice everything to achieve it. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked. Dominic met her gaze directly. "Because I want you to know the real person, not just the image that appears in business journals. If we're going to be married, Emma, I want you to understand where I come from and what truly matters to me. And what matters to you. Family, loyalty, building something that lasts beyond my own lifetime." He paused, his fingers drumming lightly on the table. "And lately, the idea of not being alone anymore?" The vulnerability in that last confession made Emma's heart skip. She realized that beneath his confident exterior, Dominic was just as uncertain about this arrangement as she was, just as hopeful that it might become something real. When Dominic drove Emma home that evening, he didn't immediately say goodbye. Instead, they sat in the car outside her apartment building, the engine off, wrapped in comfortable silence. "Emma," Dominic said finally, his voice quieter than she had heard before, "I want you to know something. You can change your mind any time before the wedding. If you decide you can't go through with this, I'll still find a way to help your family. I don't want you here out of obligation alone." Emma turned to look at him, surprised by his words. "Why would you say that?" "Because I want you to choose this freely. I want you here because you believe we can build something worthwhile together, not because you feel trapped." In that moment, sitting in the darkness with only the streetlights illuminating Dominic's sincere expression, Emma felt something shift inside her. This wasn't just a business transaction anymore. This was to people taking a genuine risk on each other. "I'm not changing my mind," Emma said firmly, "but thank you for giving me the choice." Dominic smiled, reached over, and gently squeezed her hand. "Then I'll see you at the altar, future Mrs. Ashford." The wedding ceremony was everything Dominic had promised. Small, elegant, and efficient. In the intimate chapel at Powell's Garden, surrounded only by their immediate families and a handful of close friends, Emma spoke vows that would bind her to this man she barely knew, but was beginning to genuinely care about. The dress she had chosen was simpler than the first one. A flowing aligned design in ivory silk that made her feel like an elevated version of herself, rather than someone playing dress-up. As she walked down the short aisle on her father's arm, She saw Dominic waiting at the altar, and her breath caught at the intensity of his gaze. He looked devastatingly handsome in his tailored navy suit, but it was the expression on his face that stopped her heart. He wasn't looking at her like a business acquisition or a convenient solution to a problem. He was looking at her like she mattered, like she was precious. Like this moment was significant beyond any contract they had signed. When Robert placed Emma's hand in Dominic's, she felt the warmth and strength of his grip, the slight tremor that revealed his own nervousness. They spoke their vows clearly, their voices steady, despite the magnitude of what they were promising. I, Dominic Ashford, take you, Emma Victoria, to be my lawfully wedded wife. I promise to respect you, support your dreams, and build a life with you based on honesty and partnership. I, Emma Victoria, take you, Dominic Ashford, to be my lawfully wedded husband. I promise to honor our commitment, share your journey, and create a future with you built on trust and mutual respect. When the officiant pronounced them married and Dominic leaned in to kiss her, Emma felt electricity course through her entire body. It was meant to be a brief ceremonial kiss, but the moment their lips met, something ignited between them. The kiss deepened naturally, and Emma found herself leaning into him, her hands gripping his lapels as his arms encircled her waist. When they finally separated, both slightly breathless, the small gathering applauded warmly. Emma caught her mother wiping tears from her eyes and Robert smiling with genuine happiness despite the unusual circumstances that had brought them to this moment. The reception was held at a small restaurant overlooking the Willamette River, where Dominic had arranged for Emma's favorite foods despite having known her for less than 2 weeks. As they shared their first dance to a jazz rendition of The Way You Look Tonight, Emma marveled at how natural it felt to be in his arms. How are you feeling, Mrs. Ashford? Dominic murmured against her ear as they swayed together. Strange, hopeful, terrified, Emma admitted. All of the above. Me too, he confessed, pulling back slightly to look at her. But mostly hopeful. As evening fell, they left the reception for Cannon Beach, where Dominic's oceanfront house awaited them. The private jet he had chartered felt excessive to Emma, but she was beginning to understand that. Dominic operated on a different scale than she was accustomed to. The house took Emma's breath away, built into the cliffside with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Pacific. It was an architectural masterpiece that balanced modern luxury with natural materials. The interior featured exposed timber beams, stone fireplaces, and an open design that brought the dramatic coastline directly into the living spaces. It's incredible, Emma whispered as they entered the master suite, where someone had scattered rose petals across the bed and lit candles that cast dancing shadows on the walls. Dominic stood behind her, close enough that she could feel his warmth but not touching her yet. Emma, I want you to know there's no pressure tonight. We can take things as slowly as you need. Emma turned to face him, studying his expression in the candlelight. Over the past 2 weeks, she had felt her attraction to him growing steadily. It wasn't just his physical appearance, though she found him undeniably handsome. It was his intelligence, his dry humor, the way he listened when she talked about her architectural philosophies, the vulnerability he showed when he let his guard down. What if I don't want to go slowly? She asked, surprising herself with her boldness. Something shifted in Dominic's eyes, a heat that made Emma's pulse quicken. Then we won't, he said, his voice deeper than usual. He reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, and gently removed the pins from her hair, letting it fall in waves around her shoulders. His fingers traced the line of her jaw with such tenderness that Emma felt her eyes flutter closed. I'm going to make this good for you, Dominic whispered, leaning down to brush his lips against her neck. I'm going to take my time learning what you like, what makes you respond. Emma felt heat flood through her body at his words. When he kissed her again, it was nothing like the restrained kiss at the ceremony. This was passionate, consuming, a kiss that made her forget they had only known each other for 2 weeks. His hands moved to the zipper of her dress, sliding it down slowly while his mouth explored hers. As her dress pooled on the floor and Dominic guided her toward the bed, Emma realized she was no longer thinking about business arrangements or family obligations. In this moment, the only thing that mattered was the man holding her, the way his touch set her skin on fire, and the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she was falling in love with her husband on their wedding night. Emma woke to sunlight, streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the rhythmic sound of waves crashing against the rocks below. For a disoriented moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then, awareness flooded back, along with warmth in her cheeks, as memories of the previous night returned in vivid detail. She turned in the massive bed to find Dominic's side, empty but still warm. The scent of his cologne lingered on the pillow, mixing with the salt air breeze flowing through the partially open balcony door. Emma sat up, pulling the sheet around herself, and noticed a note on the nightstand in bold, masculine handwriting.
Good morning, wife.
Coffee and breakfast on the terrace when you're ready. Take your time. We have nowhere to be, except here. Yours, Dominic. The word yours made something flutter in Emma's chest. She showered quickly, dressed in casual linen pants and a soft cotton sweater, and found her way to the expansive terrace where Dominic sat reading the newspaper. 2 steaming mugs of coffee and a spread of fresh fruit, pastries and eggs waiting. He looked up when she appeared, and his smile was genuine and unguarded. Good morning. How did you sleep? Better than I have in weeks, Emma admitted, settling into the chair across from him. The ocean view was spectacular, with Haystack Rock visible in the distance and seabirds wheeling in the clear morning sky. I'm glad. Dominic poured her coffee, remembering without asking that she took it with cream and no sugar. I thought we could spend the day walking the beach, maybe visit some of the tide pools, or if you prefer, we could just stay here and talk. I realized last night that despite everything, there's still so much I don't know about you. I spent the morning exactly as he suggested, walking along the shoreline with their shoes in their hands, talking about everything from childhood memories to their philosophies on architecture and development. Emma learned that Dominic had a younger sister named Natasha, who lived in Los Angeles and worked in fashion, that he had climbed Mount Hood 3 times, that he secretly loved old black and white movies despite his modern image. What about you? Dominic asked as they sat on a piece of driftwood, watching the tide come in. What do people not know about Emma Victoria? I'm afraid of heights, Emma confessed, which is ironic for an architect who designs tall buildings. I have to force myself to go up in the structures I create. That takes real courage, Dominic said, his hand finding hers naturally. Doing what you love despite your fear. Or maybe it's just stubbornness, Emma laughed. I don't think so. I think it's passion. You love what you do enough to push past your limitations. They returned to the house as afternoon faded toward evening, and Emma felt something she hadn't expected. She didn't want this honeymoon to end. She didn't want to return to reality, where their marriage would be scrutinized by business associates, family members, and the media. Here, in this bubble of time, they could simply be 2 people discovering each other. That evening, as they shared wine on the terrace under a sky full of stars, Dominic turned serious. Emma, I have a confession. From our first meeting at the restaurant, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. At first, I thought it was just physical attraction, but it's more than that. Your intelligence, your strength, the way you see possibilities where others see obstacles. I think I'm falling in love with you. The words hit Emma like a lightning strike. She had felt their connection growing, but hearing him voice it made it real in a way that terrified and thrilled her simultaneously. It's too soon to call it love, Emma said carefully, though her voice trembled slightly. We barely know each other, maybe Dominic acknowledged. But it's not too soon to recognize potential. Do you feel something, Emma? Something beyond the agreement we signed? Emma looked into his eyes, seeing hope and vulnerability that he wasn't trying to hide. Yes, she whispered. I feel something. I don't know exactly what it is yet, but it's more than I expected to feel. Dominic closed his eyes briefly as if absorbing her words. When he opened them, there was fierce determination in his gaze. Then let's build on that. Let's give our marriage the chance to become something real. They returned to Portland 3 days later, and reality hit Emma with the force of a physical blow. Dominic's penthouse in the Pearl District was stunning. A 2-story space with panoramic city views and minimalist decor that screamed expensive bachelor, but it felt cold and impersonal. Nothing like the warmth of the beach house. This is your home now, Dominic said as he gave her the tour. But if you want to change anything, redecorate completely. You have total freedom. Emma walked through the pristine spaces, noting the perfectly placed artwork that looked selected for investment value rather than personal meaning. The furniture that prioritized form over comfort. It's beautiful, but it doesn't feel like a home. It never was, Dominic admitted. It was just a place to sleep between business trips. I'm hoping you can change that. Before Emma could respond, the private elevator chimed. Dominic frowned, clearly not expecting visitors. That's odd. Security should have called up first. When the elevator doors opened, a tall, striking woman stepped out with the confidence of someone who owned the space. She was beautiful in an artificial way, with long dark hair, green contact lenses, and designer clothing that probably cost more than most people's monthly salaries. She wore an expression of superiority that immediately put Emma on guard. Dominic. The woman exclaimed dramatically. I can't believe you got married without inviting your own sister. I had to find out from social media, Natasha, Dominic said with obvious reluctance. Emma, this is my younger sister. Natasha, meet my wife, Emma. Natasha turned her attention to Emma with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. So you're the famous bride. How unexpected. It's nice to meet you, Emma said politely, extending her hand. Natasha ignored the gesture, instead looking Emma up and down with obvious appraisal. Dominic, darling, we need to talk privately. It's about the family trust funds. It's anything you have to say can be said in front of Emma. Dominic replied firmly. She's my wife. Well, about that. Natasha settled onto the pristine white sofa as if she owned it. Mom and Dad are furious, obviously. They found out from the newspaper, and the family lawyers have concerns. What kind of concerns? Dominic's voice took on a dangerous edge.
All delays.
The marriage was very sudden, and this girl, Natasha, gestured dismissively toward Emma without looking at her. Comes from a family with serious financial problems. The lawyers think it might be prudent to adjust the prenuptial agreements. Emma felt as if she had been slapped. Excuse me, but I'm standing right here. If you have something to say about me, you can address me directly. Natasha finally looked at Emma directly, her green eyes cold. Fine, I think you're a gold digger who took advantage of my brother during a weak moment. I think this marriage will last exactly as long as it takes you to get what you want and find a loophole out with a generous settlement. Natasha, that's enough. Dominic's voice cracked through the penthouse like thunder. Just saying what everyone's thinking, Dominic. This girl appears out of nowhere. You marry her in 2 weeks. And conveniently, her family suddenly has a capital injection. It doesn't take a genius to connect the dots. Emma stood, her dignity under attack, but her composure intact. You're right about one thing, Natasha. This marriage was an arrangement. But you're wrong about my motivations. I'm not a gold digger. I'm a professional architect who agreed to marry your brother to save 50 jobs and the retirement funds of people who've dedicated their careers to my family's company. She turned to Dominic, whose expression was unreadable. And regarding getting what I want and leaving, let me be clear. What I want is to build a real life with your brother. But I won't stay where I'm not welcome, or where my integrity is constantly questioned. Without waiting for a response, Emma walked to the elevator and pressed the call button. I'll be at my parents' house until you decide whether you really want a wife, or just wanted a convenient solution for your public image. The elevator doors closed before Dominic could respond. But Emma saw the conflict on his face. As she descended toward the lobby, she wondered if she had just saved her dignity or destroyed her marriage before it truly began. But she knew one thing, absolutely. She would not tolerate being treated as less than an equal partner. Regardless of how much money was involved, her phone buzzed with a text from Dominic. Don't leave. We're handling this together. Emma stared at the message, her heart torn between pain and hope. The elevator reached the lobby and she had to make a choice. Trust that Dominic would choose her over his family's approval. Or protect herself by walking away now, before she got hurt more deeply. She pressed the button to return to the penthouse. When the elevator doors opened again, Emma found Dominic standing alone. Natasha was nowhere to be seen, and his expression was intense, almost fierce. I told her to leave, he said without preamble. I made it clear that if she can't respect you, she's not welcome in our home. I also called the family lawyers and fired anyone who questioned our marriage. And I phoned my parents and told them the truth about everything. About how we met, about our arrangement, about how I'm falling in love with you. I told them they can meet you properly and respectfully, or they can stay in Los Angeles. Emma felt tears threatening. Dominic, you just risked your relationship with your entire family for me. He crossed the space between them in 3 strides and took her hands in his. You are my family now. You're my present and my future. I won't allow anyone, not even my own blood, to disrespect you. He paused, his gray blue eyes searching hers. But more than that, what I feel for you goes beyond any business arrangement. These past few days, you've changed everything for me. You've made me want to be a better man. Emma studied his face, looking for any sign of manipulation or insincerity, but found only raw honesty. What if this doesn't work? What if love isn't enough? Then at least we'll have tried to build something real, Dominic said. But Emma, I have a feeling we're going to surprise ourselves. I think we're going to create something extraordinary. Why are you so confident? Because when I'm with you, everything makes sense. And this morning, when I saw you hurt because of my sister, I felt like someone had torn my heart out. That's not just convenience or physical attraction. That's love. Emma felt her defenses crumble. I'm scared, Dominic. This is happening so fast, and it's so much bigger than anything I've experienced.
I know.
I'm scared too. But let's be scared together. Emma looked at this man who had been a stranger 3 weeks ago, who had offered her a business arrangement, and instead given her the possibility of genuine partnership. She thought about walking away, protecting herself from potential heartbreak. But she also thought about what she might lose if she gave up now. Okay, she whispered. Let's build something real together. Dominic smiled, that transformative expression that made him look younger and less guarded. He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. I promise you, Emma, I will spend every day proving that choosing me was the right decision. As they stood wrapped in each other's arms, the Portland skyline twinkling beyond the windows, Emma realized something profound. She had entered this marriage to save her family's company, but somewhere along the way, she had found something far more valuable. A true partner who saw her as an equal, who valued her dreams as much as his own, who was willing to risk everything to protect what they were building together. 2 weeks later, Emma stood in the new office space that would house Ashford Victoria Sustainable Architecture, the partnership firm she and Dominic had officially formed. Her name came first on the letterhead, per Dominic's insistence, because, as he had said, her vision was what made the company's mission possible. What do you think? Dominic asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. I think it's perfect, Emma said, leaning back against him. I think we're perfect. I love you. Emma Ashford, Dominic murmured into her hair. I love you too, Emma replied. And she meant it with her whole heart. Their marriage had begun as an impossible choice, a business transaction designed to solve practical problems. But through honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to trust each other, they had transformed it into something neither had anticipated. A true love story, built on the foundation of respect, shared dreams, and the willingness to fight for what they were creating together. As they stood looking out at the city, it would reshape with their vision for sustainable development. Emma realized that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin in the most unexpected ways. And sometimes, it's the person you marry for practical reasons becomes the person. Can't imagine living without. Their story was just beginning. But Emma knew with absolute certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as true partners in every sense of the word. The millionaire who had whispered promises on their wedding night had become the man who held her heart, and the arranged marriage had become the greatest love of her life.